y'all, back at you with another video. I'm Marie Dozier, and today I want to talk about an element from the Willie Lynch letter. If you don't know what that is, it's basically like a letter. They say it was a letter, but some people say it was manufactured in the 1930s or 20s, so it's been known to be a fake. But a lot of the stuff in it, the letter, is actually pretty accurate. So look it up. It's pretty good. But I want to discuss one topic they had in the letter, which is young versus old. They wanted to use younger Native people to separate us from the older Native people, which is kind of true, because we do have that different mindset when you think about it, and it was kind of bred in us if you really want to get that deep. Because you could go back one generation, you want to talk to your parent about some revolutionary stuff, they don't really want to mess with it, or they say, you should really do it the right way. And it's like, what is the right way when you think about it? Because if marching was the right way, then why did they still kill Martin Luther King just like how they killed Malcolm X, who was a radical, even though he really didn't do anything radical? He was just talking about staying separate and building your own things, which was a smart thing to do. Because if you notice at the end of MLK's life, he was like, I think I sent my people into a burning building with us integration, which he probably knew, because once integration started, look at how many black businesses suffered, or black-owned or native-owned businesses went under because of integration, because we wanted to spend our money with everybody else but our own. I think that's what had happened. So our older counterparts, or the next generation, doesn't really, I wouldn't say doesn't respect, but doesn't want to hear the older generation's input, because sometimes they don't want to be quote-unquote revolutionary or radical, or do something different, just because they're so used to being a part of a system that's already existed, when the system that's already been in place was never for you. When you go back, it was never for you. They were never talking about you when they said, all men are created equal, and every man's in the Constitution about how every man has a right to land, live life in happiness. They weren't talking, you were the property, if you want to go back, and that was the Constitution. But we sometimes get confused and really think that it applies to us, the quote-unquote American dream, when it doesn't. It doesn't at all, because if it applied, then everybody would be getting their own share. Why is it that still in 2020, you can be a woman, have the same degree, have the same qualifications, but still make less than a man? And if you are a woman who's a Native woman, you make less than that. How come, if everyone's created equal? So that just proves my point that the Constitution wasn't talking about us. So our older counterparts will say, well, you're just, making everything about race and yada, yada, yada. And it's like, no. But if you make everything about economics, why is it that every other group of people is well off, or has their own establishments and businesses or institutions, but us? And if you do have your own institution, it's owned by people who don't look like us. Like the Howard was named after Rockefeller's mother, who's a white man. So I mean, it was a lot of the stuff that we have isn't even from us organically. So and you're gonna probably say, well, we couldn't make schools back then, but do you see a lot of schools today? I mean, I know LeBron just started one, but do you see a lot of colleges that we made on our own today? And it's like, nobody wants to get revolutionary enough to start it. Nobody wants to start our own economics, start our own. So when you tell like the older generation that, oh, we should start doing for ourselves, they'll get, a little hesitant, because they're so used to living in a world where it's better to conform or be integrated with the system, because in the system that they have Social Security or pension or this, that, and the third, which for a lot of jobs doesn't even exist anymore, like 401ks and pensions, and for certain jobs. So a lot of the systems that you're fighting for don't even exist anymore or don't even apply anymore, because you can get a job, you can stay there for 30 years, okay, you can get a pension, but you can finally cash in on your retirement, but is that going to be enough, honestly, for you to survive on? You retire average age maybe 60, 65. You got to live maybe average lifespan 25 more years longer if you want to live to 80 or 85. Can you really live off the amount of money that you put away from your retirement fund? So that's a little outdated thinking. But I feel like the Willie Lynch letter help push that narrative forward to where the older generation is automatically warring with the younger generation. Like, you could say even the native boomers don't necessarily get well with the millennials or the Gen X or anybody else, because their way of thinking or the Willie Lynch syndrome got in them so bad to where they kind of see the younger generation as crazy, and the younger generation kind of sees the old generation as outdated or, coons. So that's the way they use to separate us, is by using that system in the Willie Lynch story, which is young versus old. Whereas if we were all on the same wavelength, young and old generation, we'd probably be unstoppable, because our parents are thinking the same way as the younger generation. Like, okay, we need to do for self. Okay, let me go ahead and put some money away from my pension and put some towards maybe starting a little trust fund for my kids, or maybe to 20% of every check I get from my job, instead of buying you some new shoes, let me go ahead and start a savings bond. Or for every little bit of money I get, let me go ahead and start investing in other businesses in our community. Or for every little money I get, let me go ahead and start investing in the stock market. Or better yet, let's start our own market, like a Tulsa, Oklahoma, or Black Wall Street. Let's start doing stuff like that. But that doesn't happen because we're so day by day thinking. Like, as soon as every 2 weeks to get a check, I gotta take care of certain responsibilities now. Like, you gotta take care of bills now. Like, you gotta take care of the gas now, and you only make just enough to where you can only pay your bills and not have a lot left over. And the money you do have left over, you want to spend on like trinkets or nice shiny new things, which you do deserve. But you should also think about the future. You shouldn't just think day by day or check to check. You should be thinking 3, 4, 5 checks in the future, or 3, 4, 5 generations in the future, to where, okay, I'm the older generation, I had to struggle. Let me go ahead and make enough money or put some money to the side to where my kids can have a fresher start. Or tell my kids, instead of going to school, get a job, why don't you go and create a job? Why don't you go ahead and create a business? Why don't you go ahead and make your own economic system or be your own boss? I just feel like if the older generation did that, we would have a better starting point. But the generation we live in, or the older generation, is so used to, okay, you 18, get out of my house. Or you're grown enough, get out of my house. Where any other culture doesn't do that. They make sure their kids well off. Like, they'll make sure that their kids got their credit together. They'll make sure they got enough money to where they move out, they're well off, and they're economically responsible, fiscally responsible. But for us, most of the time, the older generation's like, oh, you 18, get out. And then that just teaches us automatically to struggle. Because automatically, our average job you're probably going to get at that age is probably minimum wage. And that's going to probably be enough just to pay your bills and just to pay for general necessities like gas. And you probably will never have like enough saved and just be living check to check until you graduate if you're in school. And once you graduate, you have debt now. So you have to start paying it back. So I just feel like if the older generation wasn't not selfish, but wasn't so one-sided thinking as to just thinking for one day at a time, or just thinking, oh, you're an adult, let's go ahead and take care of yourself now, when nobody else really does that. If you think about it, Hispanic people live multiple people in the house until they can afford to live on their own. So I just think if the older generation was more helpful to the younger generation, and if the younger generation would try to help the older generation see that you can't just be thinking oh, one day at a time, one check at a time, one check in advance. Oh, you gotta get money now, or you gotta work for somebody now. We would be so much further, I think. That's how they divided us with the Willie Lynch letter, putting the young versus the old. Because if the old didn't think, oh, well, my kid's 18, they got to get out now, then we probably would be owning the block by now, owning our blocks, owning our community by now. Because, okay, I'm 18, let me go ahead and apply for some secured credit cards. Let me get my credit score to 700. Okay, I'm at 700. It's about a year. I'm about 19, 20. Got a little money saved up. Let me go ahead and buy an apartment building, and then I'll live in one space, and then I'll rent out the other to my family members. That way, you're making money, expendable income. You have a property now. So if we would think as one group, as one generation, as one mindset, as having the same goal, we'd be much further. But you let them divide us by having the young versus the old. The older mindset says, go to school, get a job, have a family, be in debt, die. A younger generation says, you can make money any different type of way on YouTube. You can make money, be an entrepreneur. You can make money all different types of ways you can spend it. But we'll definitely see our parents not agreeing with that or seeing it as unsecure. And that's just like a way of the older generation looking down on the younger generation, or how the riots happened and the older generation was just looking at us like, oh, ugh. And it's like, that's not even your stuff. Like, why are you getting upset? Like, the older generation was like just so appalled and just thinking that you just lost your mind. And not necessarily saying I agree with whatever happened, because a lot of it I think was planned by a government, by Antifa, was starting those riots. If you really look into it, a lot of people starting the riots were groups, and a lot of people who were burning down the buildings and the businesses were the owners. If you want to look into it, because if you forget, there was a recession on, the virus hit, and then everything was closed up. A lot of businesses were already suffering. So I was, critically thinking. A lot of people were critically thinking instead of just thinking, oh, let's watch the news and just, oh, let's automatically blame the quote-unquote protesters who weren't even doing it. It was Antifa radicals who were doing it. Just automatically assumed and started blaming your own people. But it was actually a lot of the store owners doing it to their own businesses, because they were already suffering from not having foot traffic, because everybody was inside. So they thought, okay, let me just burn my building down and collect the insurance. Let's think about that. Wouldn't it sound smarter? Because I already don't like the people that I'm selling to. Let me just go ahead and burn the building down, collect the insurance, and go in my own community or something to that effect. You can't just take things at face value and automatically assume, oh, okay, these are a handful of people, which it was some of us, they started though, who were looting, quote unquote, but they weren't burning down the buildings. That was, I think, the establishment owners, or was a lot of Antifa members. But that's for an unpopular opinion video. Honestly though, but if we thought as a unit, we'd be so much further as generations grew on. Because if one generation out, we had a couple generations out, we had Tulsa, Oklahoma. Could you imagine if we just kept that system going? How much further we could have been? And that was in like I want to say the 30s or 40s, 50s. We'd be so much further down the line as a group. So I think that about sums it up. Don't be so quick to be young versus old mindset. Try to bring I know a lot of them are already set in their ways, but try to make them understand that young versus old mentality was set up to divide us by the Willie Lynch story. So that about sums it up today. Y'all take care now. You hear?